Hey there, YouTubers. Thanks for tuning back into another episode. Today's, I guess, part 2 or episode 2 of our weekly vlog attempt. So in the previous video, I committed to daily uploads for a week at least. So let's go ahead without any further ado and kick off today's episode. So ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we're still waiting on some parts. I do have some items arriving today that we're going to include in this little vlog, or this episode rather. But we're still waiting on some heat shrink tubing and some valve seals so we can finish up the Vitara built D16. If you haven't watched today's or yesterday's video, go ahead and pause this video and go watch it first. That way you're caught up to speed. But to kick off today's episode, we're going to do a couple things. We're going to install a distributor on a D16 Civic that I just picked up. We're also going to finish porting and hogging out, for lack of a better explanation, our H23 manifold. And a large part of today, we're going to catch you guys up to speed on the F22 that you've been asking questions about. In previous episodes or videos, we went ahead and we did a few things to an engine block. And I've kind of given you guys, cookie pieces or cookie crumbs to the whole puzzle. But the way that it's set up, I've been building an F22a1, and it's just been on the back burner. It's not been something I've been super, stressed out about getting done in a timely manner, but it's actually done. So today we're going to go ahead and review it and kind of unveil it and kind of get you caught up to speed there. But this H23 manifold is for it. So without any ado, let's go ahead and jump right into it. So ladies and gentlemen, this is kind of a large conglomerate of a few different videos that you've probably seen. What we did whenever I moved to a year ago was we picked up an F22a1 from a junkyard. And whenever we got it, it was bone stock, like 296,000 miles. We had a whole lot of plans. We needed a turbo kit. We had some of the pieces that we had kind of scoped out previously. But what we did was I used the Chris Boyette epoxy block fill, and I filled this F22a1. It's a half over bore, so like 0.5 millimeter, and it's running a set of Wiseco custom pistons. I've got some different screenshots from whenever I built it. I'm going to play you guys a brief montage, and then I'll catch you back here.
It's not a game, it's a rich thing.
So guys, with all that being the case and you having seen a lot of the pieces that transpired to get to where we are today, you know, this is not something that you see a lot of. There's been a few that I've been able to find on YouTube, but they're kindly a unexpected large bore Honda engine that has a very kind of straight through wide port large valve head design that usually, I mean, in most cars with very little effort, this can make, you know, 300 to 500 horsepower just depending upon the build. And it's a non-VTEC 16 valve Accord motor. So in our case, to kind of summarize it, we've got a custom ground camshaft. We have a Wiseco custom piston. We have an Eagle rod, a factory crank, balance shaft delete, a Fab, Infamous Motorsports FabMD top mount manifold, a Borg Warner 362 SXE. This is actually like a hot parts upgrade for like a Power Stroke, so a pretty comparable and very favorable size. 60 millimeter Turbo Smart wastegate, and all this kind of put together with as many different factory style components as what we could find, you know, gasket wise. I actually had to wait close to 7 months on a Cometic head gasket. AEM True Time cam gear. This is like one of the oldest OG style F-Series compatible cam gears. But guys, all of this I'm telling you because it kind of leads into what we're doing today. This engine has been on the back burner, but together for some time. You know, we've got a bung to weld and then a few things to fit our H2B kit together. But this will be an H2B and a EK that I'm going to play with and then eventually sell. By doing that, we were very limited on our intake manifold options. When we had this head over at Harrington's Machine Shop, we did like a race port, oversized valves. The cam that we've got is the maximum amount that you can regrind a factory cam. There's just, like I said before, there are not a ton of aftermarket options available for this, but with what we had, there was even fewer intake manifold options. So a non-VTEC H23 manifold will actually fit this head flange. And from that point, we're going to do a little work on it today. So let's go ahead and head out there where I've got set up and get started. So guys, to give you the whole view of kind of what we're working with here, I'm going to put the manifold back together and then I'll show you what it looks like in its stock form, and I'll show you why we were wanting to port it and do some of the modifications. This, like I mentioned before, is an H23 stock intake manifold from a non-VTEC H23. I picked this up on carpart.com because it's pretty hard to identify which one is which with a lot of the people that are selling them used. So if you know what to look for, you can actually look for casting marks and locate one used and potentially save yourself some money. But I tried that a couple times and ended up with H22 manifolds. So normally this manifold is again on an H23 non-VTEC. This is where your EGR valve goes. You've got a like idle air control valve here, and then some other kind of like solenoid valve or something here. I'm not sure, I can't remember. But this is kind of our starting canvas. So whenever you open it up, the plenum is actually designed to where each one has butterflies. Normally there would be a butterfly flap running horizontal here for each cylinder. The way that it would operate, you have an additional secondary IAB over here, which would stay shut for like low end torque and then open up under vacuum for higher end, you know, power. Within that power or that design from Honda, it's not ideal for a high horsepower boost application. And rather than spending a couple $1,000s or even $1,000 on an intake manifold, we're going to utilize this, port it our way, and it's a proven, you know, operable piece. So what I've started here is I cut out the webbing in our spacer. So we need to go ahead and grind this flat with being super mindful of what's actually below it, so we don't actually purge or like expose any kind of leaks. Over here, we're going to do the same thing. We're basically going to trim out all of the inside and leave just the outside. And then we're going to file this down. In order to do this, I've got a couple different bits I'll show you in a second. and an air grinder that's like a straight angle grinder, I'll bring to the equation too. So let's go ahead and get started. So guys, if you're doing this, you're going to need to know a couple things. A couple things that I learned along the way. These particular bits here that have multiple little teeth, you guys can see that. These are like shaping bits. They take a small amount of material off at each pass or at a time. What you need to pick up is like an auging bit. See how it has more of like a chamfered gear style approach? This is going to remove more material quicker. It also means that the chunks that come off using this one here in my hand are much larger, so you're not covered in it for 2 days, you know, figuring out that, oh, it's been between my fingers or in my clothes. Whereas this is going to create like dust particles. So we're looking to remove as much material as quick as possible, and we're going to use this guy today. You're going to need some kind of different angle grinder. This is actually an angle grinder for like a 1/4 inch. This doesn't necessarily give me the leverage I like, so I like to use like a straight head here. We'll go ahead and change out our bit, get started. So guys, the air compressor is having to run here in the background, but I wanted to give you a little brief update. As you can see, this is taking quite a bit of time. We're basically shaving this down to the point that we can knife edge this. So that way whenever the air hits it, it diverts into each one of these 4 ports, which will then travel to each cylinder. Once we get this knife edged, then we'll go over here and hog out these, so we'll make them match. The tools that we have would prevent us from cutting through for the sake and I guess unsure capability that we would like protrude through the other side of the plenum. So we're not going to make any horizontal cuts. We're just going to keep shaving this down to a knife edge, and then make sure it's all good and smooth. And like, see, a lot of this is like casting imperfections or like impurities that were like below the surface that we're finding. So get it all cleaned up. So boys and girls, with the help of a hole saw, we've got all 4, runners here about the same depth. We just need to clean them up and then go ahead and knock off this ear, make it look like this one over here, and we'll be in business. Boys and girls, we've made quite a bit of progress on at least the lower half of the intake manifold. I've filmed a little bit, taken some photos as I've gone, but it's just a nasty process. There's aluminum shards and shavings just everywhere. So for lack of a better video, I cut it short for you guys, for your misery. So we're going to go ahead and cut the top of the plenum here just next, and then mate them all together. Make sure we don't have any overlap and trim it off if so. And then we've got a distributor that I mentioned that I need to put on a EK. So we'll go ahead and wrap this video up just shortly after that. But I'm gonna go ahead and move this all over here to the bench and cut it, and then we'll resume progress momentarily. So boys and girls, I test fitted everything. We're doing the final cleanup here before I kind of put it back in its final resting spot until we put it on the car. But you can see now we've got the lower intake manifold, all of it's kind of machined, or it's not machined, it's like ported by hand, sanded, kind of roughed in. Basically we just opened up all of the runners and then smoothed them out. We cut the IAB plate, the butterfly plate, to where it's completely open, and then I did the same thing with here. So I massaged and kind of shaved back and smoothed up a lot of the edges. Now we're just doing a cleanup. So I'm gonna let this soak for a second, rinse it, and then let's go jump on that distributor and wrap up this video. So guys, our distributor came in the mail. The first thing we're gonna do is make sure it's the right end before I pull anything else off the car. And if we can get it out of here, we'll be on to our way. All right, so we have a D16Y7. And looks like it's going to be our contender here. So let's go ahead and get some tools, a couple 12mm, and rock and roll. So guys, that's going to do it for today's vlog, today's episode rather, whatever you want to call it. If you like this format, here comes a plane, consider giving it a like. Look, there it is. All right, so anyhow, like, subscribe, leave me a comment, let me know what you think, and we'll catch you in the next one. See you guys.
Okay.